Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Friday night live stream. I'm your host, Brandon Hicks, and in tonight's live stream, we're going to be continuing our look at some concept sculpting in ZBrush. So I'm going to launch ZBrush real quick here. Get this going. If you haven't seen the previous live stream, go ahead and subscribe and then head into the channel. And the last posted video was from last Friday, where we started working on the dragon. So we're going to pick that up tonight and get back into it. Switch my screen over here. Okay, so I'm going to load up my previous concept. So I did a little bit of work today on this. I think, yeah, so this is where we kind of got to today, but I'm actually going to go back a little bit further than that to where we were last Friday. And let's talk about what we're going to head to tonight. Okay, so you can see from the model here, let me go ahead and snap this up. We got some of the face blocked in and got a little bit of the concept going here. Now, if you aren't familiar with what the concept art looks like, let me bring that up so you guys can see it. Here is the finished model sheet that we're kind of going off of for the dragon concept. And here is a 3/4 view of the final model that we sketched up in Photoshop. So tonight we're going to continue just the block out, making sure we got all the arms in there. And we're going to start focusing on big features like the plates and things like that we can get in, as well as the wings, because we haven't really touched the wings yet. So hopefully we can get that stuff in a good place this evening before we wrap up. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on getting these arms kind of lined up and into place. So I'm going to reposition this to the top here. And I'm also going to pull open this menu. Let's pull over our texture menu. And let's load up our model sheets and pull that in, add that to Spotlight, and then we'll position this in the background. So what I'm going to do is kind of get this centered up so that we can get a good view on where this is going to be in our document workspace here. And then once I have this kind of where it's inside all of the outside boundaries, like where that is, I'm going to go ahead and hit Z to turn off the little widget there. And then if I hit Shift Z, I can turn that on and off. So don't want to hit Shift X, I want to hit Shift Z. All right, so now I want to, I'm going to turn on the opacity a little bit on our sheet here. And I want to line up our dragon so that it's kind of positioned correctly with the top view here. So I'm just kind of scaling and moving this around in terms of the view until we get that to a good position. And I'm not going to be super worried about being perfect because at this point we're still just kind of concepting, but I'm trying to line this up so I can get the arms in place tonight. So once we have that lined up, we go to, what am I looking for? Image, maybe it's in texture view reference. Yeah, there we go. Reference views, and then I want to actually go to the top view here, reposition this back into place, and then I want to store that view. So now whenever I start moving around and start playing, get out of that view, hit top view, and it'll bring me right back to where I'm at. Okay, so the first thing we need to kind of do is pop off this arm. So I'm going to go to the subtool here, and let's take a look at this arm here. Grab that, and we will, let's duplicate our subtool here. Let's go to this one, bring all of it back, hide this one, and then on this one, I'm going to go ahead and delete hidden. under geometry. Modify topology, delete hidden, and then I'm going to close holes, read mesh, and we can play a little bit with smoothing this out. Okay, so I'm capping this off, so I just have a little bit of an easier time joining these back to the body. And okay, so here we go with our arm, popped off there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that first one attached, jump into transpose mode with this one. And I'm going to go ahead and instead of moving this around and starting to position these one by one, I'm going to use array mesh because that'll be a little faster. So let's go to array mesh. Let's make sure we're in our top view. Hit Shift C to bring back up our view here. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn the body off just so that we are going to start over from scratch with this new arm here. So before I start playing with getting this in position, I want to make sure that everything is still sort of lined up the way that it needs to be for this subtool. So I'm going to turn the rest of these off. Turn polygroups on. I've got two different polygroups here, so I'm going to turn that all into one polygroup so it moves together. There we go, shouldn't have any problems now. And now let's go ahead and switch back to our top view, turn back on our reference here. I want to move this back up to the top, and we'll start by putting this into place. And I'm going to want to do a little bit of positioning and then scaling to get this kind of in position before we start trying to manipulate everything. So I want to make sure I don't zoom in or anything like that for the meantime. And then I want to kind of reconfigure this out here. So if I want to shift my pivot over to the middle here, we'll do that. And I'm going to actually draw out from here to here. Go ahead and scale. Okay, jump back into our draw mode real fast and see where these joints are lining up. So we're going to do a little bit of masking here to get these into a good place. So I'm going to hold Control to mask, and I'm looking to the left side to see how far we're going here with the mask. So let's invert that. Actually, I did not like that mask. Okay, I think it's going to be faster to just draw with the lasso. So let's lasso draw here on this joint. I hit Control, click a couple of times to smooth out that mask. Then if we go back to transpose and reposition our widget here, I'm just holding Alt to get this kind of lined up. I'm just going to play with where that joint is starting. I'm not so concerned with the middle of this because it's going into the body, but we do need to make sure we get the rest of this kind of blocked in. So the next thing I would do is let's pull the rest of that over, mask that, invert it. We'll go ahead and pull these in. Make sure we get our mask where we want it. I think for the most part that is all okay. I think I want the claw a little bit longer. So let's pull a mask here. Let's go into scale. Scale that out a little bit. Okay, now I want to make sure the width of these are a little skinnier. So with the whole thing selected, I'm going to go ahead and scale a little bit on the y-axis like this, and then quickly rotate into the side here and make sure that width is kind of the same. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just pretty close. So switch back into top view, lock that in the position. Okay, now we're going to go on our positioning here. So we've got our subtool. We're going to use array mesh. Switch over to array mesh here, turn that on. And I want to duplicate these quickly all the way down to the bottom version here. So we're going to play a little bit with how we can do that. So we've already got a repeat of 2 on here. The offset, we're going to play with the Y amount. And we drag this down, repeat this up. And you'll notice if you switch these on and off, you'll have different kinds of positioning. So we're also going to be scaling these in, but for right now, I think what we're going to need is like 16 copies. I think that's about right. And I just want to kind of get it as close as I can on that last limb on the model sheet. So I'm just going to play a little bit with the numbers here. Okay, it's close enough. So let's go over to the scale. I want to scale in the X direction, pull these in, and this is going to be sort of just a linear scale, so we don't need to have any special settings or anything like that. That's plenty good for now. And let's take a look in our 3D view. Turn our spotlight off and see how these are looking. And the one thing I'm kind of concerned about right now is making sure that we have a plan for how we're going to separate these out, because if we try to start dynameshing and sculpting on these right now, they're overlapping a little bit, so we're going to have to kind of spread these out. Now we can do that in the array mesh to play with the curves a little bit, the way they're distributed, but it might be just as easy to also play a little bit with the scaling to try to compensate for how this is spread out. So they're lined up really, really well right now, but I want to see if I can scale these in a little bit, because they're coming in on the x-axis, but they're not getting smaller on the y or the z-axis. So let's, while we're still under scale, we got the x amount coming in a little bit. Let's take the y amount down to something like point, so we need to go high, 0.9 and 0.9. And that's just going to make the outer diameter of these arms a little bit skinnier all the way down as they get brought in a little bit. So the more we play with these, the more we can kind of play with how those are spread out. And then, of course, we can up the offset again to compensate for spreading this back out. So let's go back to the top view. Make sure we're happy with how that's working. Okay, that's pretty good. And the other thing I want to look at real fast is the body, so we'll turn that back on. And we're going to ignore that arm that is currently still in its position right now and make sure we're happy with the way these are lining up. So what I'm going to do is pull this up a little bit into the body so it's kind of not directly center, but a little forward. And then on the array mesh, we're going to want to offset a little bit in the Z axis to kind of get that positioned. Now we can also play with the Z profile, which will change how this is bending and curving with that offset. So I want to keep this curved. But if we want to dip in early and then towards the end of that straighten out a little bit, we can play with these curves and do that a little bit. So you can see how that's kind of affecting things. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So let's leave it at that for now. And I'm going to go back to my body mesh and let's turn off everything except for the body mesh. I'm going to get rid of those arms. So we don't need those at this point. So Control Shift Alt to get rid of that selection. We'll go to delete hidden under geometry menu, modify topology, delete hidden, close holes, and we will reDynamesh. And then let's shift and smooth this out a little bit. Okay, so let's turn all of our subtools back on and take a look where we're at. I really need to get in here and make some custom menus to speed this up, but for now this will work. Okay, so we've got our base dragon form here. So I can get this snapped so we can look at it from the side. Got our head kind of blocked in, and then we are getting these weird centipede style legs sort of in place. And so as we're playing with this, we can of course come back to our reference and take a look at how this is looking. So again, we're doing sort of a snake dragon hybrid type of design, and we're wanting to create some interesting combinations of insects and things like that with these legs. So we've got all of that blocked in, and we haven't talked about the plates and getting all that in yet. I'm kind of putting that off until we get to a more detailed stage, because it is something that I probably want to automate a little bit more rather than just sculpting by hand. So let's work on getting some of these wings in here a little bit. So if we switch back to the top view, we've got a little bit of a layout here for our wings. And there's a lot of things we could do to get these blocked in. We could use Z-spheres, we could use Z-sketching, we could create some primitives, Z-modeler, all sorts of ways. So it really just depends on what you're trying to do. In this case, anything that's quick is kind of what we're going to look at. So I'm going to play a little bit with Z-sketcher and see if we can get something going with that. So to use that, I'm going to need to add a Z-sphere to my subtools. So I'm going to go ahead and append a Z-sphere. Make sure to select that, and then we want to have that in position. So let's turn on transparent, see where that is. And as long as it's sort of in the middle, in a central place inside the body, that's fine. So I'm going to hit scale this down a bit, because we don't want to be clicking on it, but in the body is fine right there. So turn transparent back off. Let's go down to the Z-sketch menu. Okay, so I'm gonna hit edit sketch, and let's see if we can get this going. Switch back to our draw. And get our Z-sketch. So I'm going to pull the size down. Play a little bit with this here. One thing we don't have on that we need is X symmetry, so we'll turn that on. Okay, so the basic idea here is we're going to start somewhere kind of on the body. We can smooth everything the way we normally would, but I'm mostly concerned with being able to draw sort of off the body, give myself some framework to go off of, and use that to my advantage to block in the rest of this. So we've got some things that would be helpful if we want to rig this up for using Z-spheres, but for now I'm not really concerned about that. I just want to get that silhouette in there. So this is a quick way to kind of block all of this in. You can connect using the Z-sketch, and then if you want to smooth, you can smooth and get those back in place. But as long as we kind of have these connected, when we go to create our skin here, it will join everything up together. So I just want to make sure we've got enough geometry to cover these holes. Take a look at hitting A at our sort of adaptive mesh here and see how that's looking. And again, if we're not happy with the size of how this is all looking, we can scale up our draw size and smooth this out. I'm actually doing this while the adaptive preview is on, so if you want to switch that off, you can go hit A again. I'm gonna go ahead and discard the changes that I just made, and let's smooth while we're still getting these selected here. So by smoothing, I'm kind of getting these to fall back in place. And let's look at our subtools here. Make sure we have it still set up and in place. Okay, so I'm going to clear the canvas there because it's still giving us that preview. So there we go. Oops. A little bit heavy-handed there. So if you want to keep sketching, you need to drop the size there of your brush or the intensity. So I'm going to drop the size. Okay, so pretty light touch here. Just want to make sure I get all these gaps closed in. I'm going to make sure that once that's happening, that the adaptive mesh is taking care of the rest for me. Just want to close this all up. So let's pull that up, scale. It's probably a setting I can turn on that will allow me to keep my draw size big and my smooth size down low, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and just leave things the way they are. Okay. Set A again to preview. Okay, once we get a decent mesh in place, which is good enough to start with, we'll go ahead and apply this. So we'll switch to unified skin, make unified skin there, and that's going to save that right here. So now if I jump into my subtool, turn that Z sphere off, I'm going to go ahead and append the Z skin here that we just created. And yeah, so there we go. Got all that back. Okay, so let's take a look at our polyframe. We got a lot of different groups here because we're using a lot of different strokes. I'm gonna hit Control W to clean that up, make those one giant poly group, and we're gonna continue to sculpt on this using Dynamesh. Now, I haven't played a lot with the new Sculptors Pro mode, but if you're looking to play with that, we could also play with that. So if we switch this on, just watched the video on this yesterday from Michael Pavlovich, which is an awesome ZBrush instructor. So based on your size of your brush, it's going to automatically change the topology as you're kind of sculpting. So if you have a bigger brush size, it's going to take away polys, and if you have a smaller brush size, it's going to add more dense polys, just like that. So this is a good way to not have to use dynamic topology if you want to get in here and just start playing with adding and removing geometry quickly. If you're just sculpting to get basic shapes in and even details, it's a good tool to use. So I'm going to turn off this here, and it will save you quite a bit on your geo count if you use this correctly. So we can start by getting things kind of blocked in here, smooth out as we go, and it works on your smooth brush as well. So if you keep a consistent brush size, it will actually tessellate and estimate your geometry as you're sculpting to help you up. So let's start with a bigger size. I'm going to go ahead and even out some of this in here. So I'm just going to hold shift while we have a bigger brush size, reduce some of the geometry in some areas, make it bigger in other areas. And again, you could use Dynamesh for this, but I forgot we don't have X symmetry turned on. So I'm going to do a quick mirror and weld. Yeah, all right, now let's start working on this. Okay. So let's use a clay buildup. And I'm gonna want to kind of dig in here. Oh, let's go to our stroke. And so lazy mouse is off. Feels like our mesh is slowing down quite a bit here, so we may want to increase the brush size, do some of this geometry. You can see just how quickly it is to come in here and kind of take big chunks out of the geometry if it's getting too heavy, too dense to work on. Let's use trim dynamic a little bit, flatten this area out. Want to get some more edges in here that are a bit harsh around the areas where the anatomy would be kind of connecting in. So got some bones in here we're going to have to kind of pay attention to. Okay, so we'll go to the bottom here and do the same thing. Trim dynamic. Flatten doesn't seem to do as good of a job for me, so probably just the settings are off, but I've been gravitating a lot more towards trim dynamic lately. Just feels like I get a harsher edge. And we'll go back and smooth. So this is kind of fun stuff. Get in here and actually sculpting. So I'm being careful not to thin out too much. I want to make sure, leave myself some room in here to kind of play, but we start getting too thin and it's going to get hard to manipulate these wings without special settings and stuff. So okay, that's a pretty light touch around the edges here. Pull this back away from that arm underneath. Flatten this back. Okay, so this is the other side. This is the top side. Okay, now that we got that in place, I think I'm going to switch back to Dynamesh. It's a little easier for me to maintain with this current setup. So let's go back to geometry, Dynamesh. Okay, got our Dynamesh still turned on here. So 30 point, we just re-Dynamesh that, and now it's all the same. Okay, so this is actually a little high res. Let's take this back down to, start with about 64. Okay, so let's take a look at our model sheet again. Switch back to the top view here. Shift-C to turn back on our little model sheet. We'll take a look at where these bones are in here. So I'm going to grab my move brush. And I just want to kind of realign where some of these are joining up here. Make sure we get the silhouette correct. We're only really manipulating this from the top view, so we're going to have to, rotate around and make sure this is all correct. But for the most part, I'm gonna get a good idea of where things need to be. Scale this down a little bit, reposition the tip here. Do a quick Dynamesh. Shift-C. Switch that back to mask correct, and there we go. Okay. Smooth this out a little bit. And we're just looking for straightening up some of these lines. Use lazy mouse to do that, or in this case, I'm just pushing these back a little bit with consistent strokes with trim dynamic, which is kind of accomplishing the same thing. Too much there. Okay, so for now, it's good enough. Let's go ahead and add in some marks for where the bones are going to be. So I do, let's go with the standard brush, bring the size down, top view, Shift-C. Okay, so I'm going to add in a little bit of a line where these joints are and the bones. And within each of these longer bone structures here, there's going to be several sections. So you're going to have a subsection about there, subsection about there, one here, just like you have fingers of your body, sort of the same way. And we'll have to figure out the anatomy in terms of bone structure, skeletal system, how this connects back up to the back of the dragon's body here, but we've got some indication of what that might look like, and I'll have to do a little bit more research to nail this down if we actually get this into production. But now the tips of the dragon wings over here, they have little claws and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the snake hook and work on pulling these out a little bit. So let's get a bigger size here. Okay, so we're just going to indicate a little bit of this happening here. Dynamesh at some point. And basically, wherever a bone is coming down, sort of underneath, we're going to have it sort of jut out here with a little claw. Okay. So it kind of adds a little bit of silhouette there. Let's go in a little bit and add a little bit of creasing down around these claws, horns, or whatever they are. Just inflating the tip of that there a little bit to make sure that's not completely tapering off into oblivion. Same sort of thing over here. Pull the draw size down a little bit. Okay, a few more to do down here. Okay, got our dragon wings in there. Let's try a grab. And I want to do a special grab. Let's not grab in ZBrush. Let's move. Grab our move tool. Let's see if I can find this setting here. It's gotta be in this menu. All right, so AccuCurve, is that it? All right, let's turn off our arms right now. Yeah, AccuCurve, once you switch that on, will enable you to drag to or move to a point, and it'll make creating these little spikes a little easier. Let's see what it does there. It's a little bit softer fall off there. All right, let's thin this area down a little bit in here. Alt, kind of flatten this area out in here. It's going to be super easy to overdo this, so I don't want to get too skinny. Anywhere there's a gap in the bone structure, think about us basically suspending cloth between two poles, and that's kind of what we got here with these dragon wings. Okay, so we got a little bit of a problem getting a little too thin in here with that Redynamesh. You can see what happened. So inflate this, try to fix that. Which looks like it did, but at this point we want to use flatten. Any of those central areas with should have muscle, I'm trying to leave alone around the bones. There you go. You can kind of see that effect we're getting. A little bit more thinned out like sheets. Still got some thickness in some areas, but it's more what we want here. So throwing these two of these flattened strokes up against one another from alternate sides give you the effect of a pinch, which you can see here. So doing that on both sides of these bone structures is not a bad idea in terms of using your brush to kind of create what you need there. Probably changing the silhouette of these a little bit away from our model sheet, but that's fine. Check that, bring this back, and jump down to our top view that we have stored. Kind of see if our wings are still lining up or they're getting a little too out of place there. Okay, so now at this point, I'm gonna go back through the rest of the body and work a little bit more on cleaning up our silhouette. You can see from the concept art, it's pretty straight all the way down, and that's kind of what I want. I want this taper to be smooth. So a lot of ways to do that, but let's jump back to the top view. Let's jump into our clipping brushes. So if we hit B, C, look over here and see all these clips, and clips are going to basically allow you to push or project the vertices to a shape that you create. So in this case, if we did a clip curve, it's going to tell us we can use Control-Shift keys to create the clip. So Control-Shift, and as we draw this curve in here, start drawing with Control-Shift, let up on those, hit Control again. Actually, that'll not do what we want, so we want to start drawing and hit Alt at some point to finish the curve out, and then that will constrain there. Now we've got to make sure we're on the right subtool, so select our body here, Control-Shift, Alt, and then we'll drag down to one side, just like that. That's going to create a perfect clip all the way down the side of our mesh for this, and we'll smooth that out in a second. But for now, we want to go the opposite direction for this. I'm going to hit Control-Shift, Alt. Yeah, let's see if this works. Let's do, I like this brush. I need to make sure I'm going, yeah, okay. Start drawing. Tap Alt. There we go. Okay. So that is not doing what we want there. So let's try to go on the inside. So we'll start, tap Alt, and we'll go here. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, I think X symmetry may be messing with us here, so let's try. All right. All right, let's start. Let's Shift C out of this. Oh, what happened here? Oh, that must have been on the last subtool. So I'm gonna undo till we get back to our wings here. There we go. And we go back to our body. Let's go forward till we get rid of the arms. There we go. Not exactly sure what I need to do to go the opposite direction. Let's try it with a new tool real fast. Okay. So I start here. Divide that up. Control Shift. Okay, that clips back. Okay, that's not it. Add, yeah, it's going to go out to the side. So, okay, hide everything except for body here. Okay, got it in. Let's go ahead and save our tool. We haven't done that in a while. Okay. Maybe if we go that direction. All right, I'm kind of at a loss for what to do about that. So the thing we do here is close holes. Geometry. Topology. Classes. Okay. That is so weird. Okay. Let's just use our... All right, that's good enough. So, way too much time on that, but I got some more to learn. Okay, let's turn back on our stuff. All right, what else can we do? Definitely have more we can work up on the face. So let's work on that a little bit. I'm gonna get this thing up till a point where I'm gonna be adding the scales and stuff, and then we'll probably need to take a look at how we can add those before we pose this up, which may not happen tonight. So got this here. Go ahead and turn those off. Okay. I'm gonna pop the head off so we can kind of focus on getting that worked up to a little bit higher resolution than everything else. Okay, close all on that. Close all on that. Now we're just gonna work on the head. Okay. Let's jump into our Dynamesh menu. 256. Okay. So I've got my reference up on the other screen for the head of our little dragon here. Keep that up. And I'm just going to be trying to get these facial features in place here. This weird sort of bird-like beak that comes down. Under that, he's got these plates that sort of stack up, so you gotta dig out some of these areas in here. Not quite sure how to resolve all of this, but take a stab at it. Okay. Okay, so we got some mismatch here with the reference in terms of the eye placement. So grab a big move and just see if we can kind of reposition how this is looking. His eyes are way more angry, slanty in terms of the way that this is shaped. So I want to make sure I give him that really sinister kind of look here. Of course, we need to grab his eyes. I want those to sit back in there, so I'm going to sculpt around. Drop some of those sockets way back in there. We'll build back up around them. But I want to get down to where I expose the eyeball. And then fix what we need to get all that back into place. So he's got pretty much an exoskeleton here happening with the shape of his skull, and there's not a lot of muscle. There's a lot of plating, a lot of stuff like that happening around here, top of the eyebrow. You've got a lot of these sort of feathery type of plates. A lot of influence coming over from birds and things like that, and the way that this concept is playing out. And I'm ultimately just kind of playing around, trying to find what looks good, get rid of the stuff that doesn't. But it's still, you know, super early. A lot that can change and sort of happen with this concept. Okay, let's flatten this area down. Okay, that's better. Okay, these need to come up quite a bit in here. Yeah, a little bit more protrusion there on the top of the nose. Then got a little bit of a goatee sort of thing that I haven't thrown in there yet. So put this up. There we go. Okay, so around that, we're going to add in the lower part of the mouth here. Yeah, there we go. That is more like what I want. Okay, so still working on the eyes. Concept art, these are coming way back on the head. Then inside of sort of where the eyes are, you've got a lot of insets. The way this is layered up in here, so this is just digging in. Okay, so it's going to drag across. Get some muscle fiber coming in through here, capping off the bottom part of the eye. Up in here, you want to have a little bit of an overhang. And then we've got some layering happening here. All right, let's take a look at the whole thing at this point, kind of see where we're at. This is our concept art. Still got a lot of the outer body, shell to finish this up, obviously. But all the main pieces are pretty much in. These all look a lot more impressive once they're kind of moving around and bending. But for the most part, we are looking good. So far, we've only spent about 2.5, 3 hours on this guy, including the last stream. So not too bad at all. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save this one, and then I'm gonna play a little bit with posing, just to see what we can do. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna put the head back in with the rest of the body. So I'm gonna merge. Smooth out the area here where the head was merged back in with Dynamesh. Okay. I think for the rest of these, well, we can merge them. That's cool. Oh, let's go ahead and merge all. There we go. Concepts. Okay, there we go. So this is all one giant piece now, and we lost our legs. So let's go back. Let's see what's going on there. Wonder if we have not applied our array mesh yet. Let's jump down here. Yeah, still not applied, so we need to jump into our geometry. Actually, make mesh. There we go. Okay. So now, let's Turn all of these on. Merge visible. There we go. Okay, so let us play with maybe some posing, and might try to do a Z-sphere rig for this. So let's append a Z-sphere. Let's make sure it's in a good place. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna get a rigging, and I'm gonna get my Z-sphere rig setup. So okay. All right, let's pull this all the way down to the end, scale this down. Okay. Now we'll turn on X symmetry. Let's just rig the wings here. And this is by no means a final rig. Just looking to quickly kind of pose this into place for a night. Okay, for now that'll be fine. And we'll go ahead and start rigging these little arms up. So I'm going to want to get one right in position here. Scale this down. Let's pull this off over here. Scale this up a little bit. Down. It's probably a way to duplicate these. Not quite sure how to do that for the rest of these legs. So what I may end up doing is only posing one of these because we may not have time to do the rest of these, but I'll have to figure out how that works. So basically just every joint that I see here, I'm trying to get one of these in place. Okay, good enough. Let's see if we can bind this to our mesh. Select, I'm not sure which one of these is which right now, so let's clear this out. Clone one of those to put that into there. Let's go back to our Z-sphere, rigging, select mesh, do the concept there. Okay, bind that mesh to the rig. Should be bound now. So not sure how quickly this will work because we have a lot of points in here, but play with this. So definitely getting some weird things happening there. Probably would have been smart to create a lower res and then reconstruct this dynamic topology. So let's see, one of the things we might do, I'm not even sure if this one is connected anymore right now, but yeah. Let's see how the rest this is doing before we decide to start tweaking things here. Okay. Move that up, see if the head is moving. Yeah, that's working. Let's see, one of the things we might do is try to pose it the way it is in the 3/4 view. So I want to see first if I can rotate this whole thing. Let's jump into rotate. Yeah, so I can rotate it, but the mesh is not going to go with it. So let's go at it from another direction here. Yeah, this method doesn't seem to be working too well because of my super high density mesh. So I'll go ahead and get rid of that, and let's try the old school transpose method. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just rotate this whole thing around the x-axis. So I'm basically going to stand him up. And then I'm going to work on getting his tail and everything else tilted and all of that. So let's hold, let's go the move transpose. Yeah, doing the control method there isn't going to work because I've got separate geometry. So get rid of that mask instead. I'm just going to grab, let's see what we got in the picture. Everything from about here down. Tap with control to smooth this out a little bit. Okay. Invert the mask, rotate. Switch to the mask lasso. Same basic thing here. Control click a couple of times. Oops. Hold Alt. Rotate here. And let's do one more. So we'll hold Control here. Okay, so we got this thing kind of sitting on the ground. So we want to kind of curve this thing around with an S shape. So let's make it easy on ourselves and grab anything that is part of the second section down. Remove that. Grab everything here. Control click a couple times, invert the mask, R, hold Alt, and then curve back. The same thing. So it's just the same exact process over and over and over again. And let's do this one. Okay, so we got the major body pose in. We need to curve this a bit more, but first I'm going to kind of go to the front here. And let's look at the wings. Try to get this all in here. Okay. Alt. Oh, invert the mask. Bring this up a little bit. back and we'll unmask, or mask rather, a bit more. Smooth that out. Okay, now cut it at this joint here. Try to anchor this back in, but we're going to make sure we get so any of these areas that are kind of getting bunched up, we'll smooth out a little bit more. But for the most part, I think that's kind of getting there. So let's go back and do a little bit of cleanup and we'll call it a night. See, we got jump top view a little bit and play with the tail a little bit more. This one will work with just the control drag. But if we want to go off axis, we're going to have to turn off symmetry here. And a simpler way to do this may just be to use the move tool. Something kind of like that. So there we go. Not too great, but not too bad either. I will, of course, be working on this every Friday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., a little bit in between. So if you'd like to see how the dragon ends up, definitely come back and check that out. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Love to get some feedback and comments from you guys. I'm mostly a Blender guy, but sometimes I like to jump into some other software. I'm just kind of getting into ZBrush, learning how it works. So it's not always as slow paced as you saw tonight. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and thank you for stopping in with me. Appreciate it, guys.